Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back once again to another Fallout 4 settlement build. Today we're going to be back inside of our raider town, checking out the Guns for Hire building. Now I will say this building turned out a lot bigger than I initially planned it to be, although at the same time, it's sort of got this weird zigzaggy shape, but I'll try and show you throughout the video how I've ended up making that work. But yeah guys, with all that said, hopefully you enjoy the video, and without further ado, let's go ahead and take a closer look. Alright guys, so for starters I just want to point out really quickly for those who are maybe new to the series, that this Guns for Hire building is not the entire thing here. It's only going to be that area on the second floor, similar to how the first floor on the building way back there is the casino, and then the next one up is the clothing store, and the one on the very top is a gun store. Now, I said initially I thought this build was going to be quite a bit smaller, and what I meant by that was that I thought it was going to be very similar to that curbside area you find in New Vegas, over in the Freeside area, where you can kind of have someone just walk you through town, and from what I remember it ends up being a trap. But after I did a little bit more building and changing to the bar area, I found that the spot right above it would make a pretty decent spot and would also provide for a bit more room. So in the end, instead of it just being some little shack with a few mercenaries for hire or guides for hire, it turned out being somewhat of a business, and a pretty decent sized one at that. Now before we head on in, I just wanted to show you guys the back of the build, so you can see what I kind of meant when I said it was a bit zigzaggy and had a very odd shape to it. And what I think I'm going to do back here is maybe turn it into some sort of stands for people to sit and watch maybe a fight that would go down here. So that way this could possibly be our arena, and maybe the monsters or creatures could come out of the subway tunnels. I think that would be pretty cool. As for this build, there's no stairway or anything simple like that that leads up to the Guns for Hire build, but instead, you've got to take the elevator up, which is very similar to most of the other builds in this town. But you know what, I like that about it, because it's very different from most of our previous stuff, where we mainly only use stairs and that sort of thing. Now keep in mind I have tried to decorate each side of the elevator just a little bit, although if you take a little bit of time to think about it, you might realize that the other side there with the barbecue might be a little bit pointless, just because if we really quickly send the elevator up to, say, a different floor, the walkway we had in between these two areas has now been lost. I'll be honest though, as of now the elevator really doesn't look too great, kind of sitting out there on its own, but I think once we get a few more stories added onto this building, it should be looking at least a little better. But as I was saying, with the decorations on each side of it, we also have a little sitting area over here for maybe potential customers to this place, or just the random mercenaries or raiders. And by the way, this build, and even the town as a whole, is more so meant for the sophisticated raiders, such as the ones you'd find in Nuka World. And I think that's what's going to somewhat keep the peace here, because we don't really have the crazy raider gangs of the Commonwealth who can't necessarily control themselves. And really quickly, before we head inside, we'll go ahead and explore the balcony or deck we have out here. And overall, I'd say this is one of the main parts of the build that really gives it quite a bit more space, even though it does have that very odd shape, which kind of narrows everything down. But anyways, out on this first area that kind of sticks out, we have just some random details like beverages or things to pass the time, such as the magazine. But there's also some larger stuff too, like the wooden cutout, which I think has a little bit of a mercenary look to it, and even more so a Western style, which is sort of what I'm going for the entire town. And then last but not least, there's also the makeshift bench. And throughout the entire build, you're going to be seeing quite a bit of new furniture that I've never used before, and most of these have all been made possible by the Thematic and Practical mod, which is a really cool one that I've recently stumbled upon. Other than this area though, we also have a pretty small walkway that connects the two, and originally this wasn't here before, but everything felt kinda empty without it. Now, this side is maybe a bit more designed to actually be for the mercenaries who stay here, rather than some guest or potential buyer of a certain mercenary group. So that's why maybe this section looks a bit more comfy and also has a few drinks and chems laid out. As for the inside, this is where you really start to notice that very zigzaggy shape. But this initial area here is where the buyers would come in to purchase either just one guy or maybe an entire group of guys. And to sort of go along with that, you might imagine these things are rather expensive to purchase. So not only do we have quite a few loose caps, but also an entire cap stash as well. Oh, and for those wondering what the paper would be, I'd say it would just represent some kind of contract that's been signed. So that way if the raiders or mercenaries do end up abandoning the guy, he can always return and try to get his money back. Although in a town full of raiders, that's probably a bit easier said than done. And so really quick before we move into the area where most of the raiders and mercenaries would hang out at, let's go ahead and check out some of the details we have in here. Some of them are a little on the weird side and don't really have too much significance behind them, such as the shelf with bowling pins on it. But there are some, I guess, more meaningful details, such as the little seating area in the corner that also has a few things for customers to do while they wait for, say, a raider gang to get all geared up and ready. And also to kind of go along with the Western theme once again, or just the shoot 'em up theme, we also have another wooden cutout. And then over in the back area, there's a few more drinks lying out, some for the customers and also at least one for the cashier. And I'd say the reason for that is because I thought a place like this wouldn't really get too much business, so maybe doing a bit of drinking is something the cashier would do to pass the time. Oh, and there's also a small section for bounties, and I thought this would be a rather neat detail considering most of the time not all the raiders or mercenaries are going to be out on a job protecting some guy or helping him raid someplace. So they may want to pick up a bounty from time to time. And keep in mind, bounties don't always have to be on the good side of the law. So these guys could be hunting down a fellow raider or even the vault dweller himself. But now that all that's out of the way, let's go ahead and check out the lounge area in the back. And this is also a bit of an armory, and I'd say if you want to make a building similar to this, but maybe want to have it be a bit bigger, I'd say one thing you might want to do is increase the armory size, because as of now, ours is rather small. I mean, we only have a few lockers, a couple guns, and really not all that much ammo. And overall, I think the main downfall of it is that there's really no room to store any sort of armor, unless maybe you tried to cram it inside the lockers along with all the guns that might already be in there. But as you can see, the entire place is not just an armory. There's also a decent area for raiders or mercenaries to just kind of kick up their feet and relax. Although, speaking of the armory that has kind of poured into this section as well, as you can see, there's a loose pipe pistol on the table along with a flamethrower up on the shelf to just kind of represent that the small section we do have for the guns really isn't enough. Aside from all the weaponry though, there's quite a few drinks, chems, and even some food up on the very top shelf. Once again, we do have some more of the makeshift furniture. Now I will say, if you end up picking this mod up, even though these things are rather cool, and there's even quite a bit of them, I guess the one warning I would give is not to overuse them, which is honestly something I ended up doing and then had to fix up in the end, because everything looked sort of washed out and maybe a bit too run down for the look I'm going for with this town. And overall, I just think a mix of the regular furniture and this stuff can have a pretty cool effect. But other than those, there's also the TV, as you can see, along with a great big safe in the back, which would most likely just contain all the caps that this company's collected over the years. But anyways, guys, I'd say that'll just about do it for today's build. So hopefully you did enjoy it, and be sure to let me know what you thought down in the comments. Also, if you have any ideas for future builds, I would love to hear those as well. But yeah, guys, thanks again for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy it. And as always, I will see you in the next one.